Welcome to the Multi-Orgasmic Mama podcast, where sexual taboos are broken. I'm Tilly Storm, holistic sex coach and jade egg and tantric sex teacher. I work with luxury lovers, teaching them the art of better sacred sex by helping them remove all their blocks to pleasure, turn on confidence and connection, so they can step into their fullest potential and power as humans and alchemists in the 3D. If you'd like to learn how to release shame and guilt destroying your sex life so you can feel fully sexually liberated and free, you can access my How to Release Shame and Guilt training at www.tillystorm.com/shame. This episode is brought to you by the Sensually Embodied Woman Collective. If you're ready to remove all your blocks to pleasure, turn on and feeling confident and sexy in your body through my paid programs and offerings, then head to www.tillystorm.com today. Welcome back, my loves. It's Tilly Storm with special guest Barb from Canada. Hey, Barb, how are you?
Hey, I am very good. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, so good to have you, a Sensually Embodied Woman graduate. I would love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself and what has really sparked you doing this sort of work, the sexuality work, and what brought you here into my realm in the first place.
Well, this is big questions. I am 53 years old, wishing that I had done this when I was 20, but nonetheless, never too late to get started. I have two beautiful boys, 18 and 20, and an amazing husband. We've been together for a little over 26 years. And I just realized that there are women out there that orgasm during sex. And apparently it's not that uncommon. And why can't I do it? Why am I different? Why doesn't it work for me? So I started listening to your podcasts, and that's how I was here.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Well, what prompted you to actually go through this transformational process that is the Sensually Embodied Woman program? Because a lot of people, they're like, oh, I have a great relationship. I'll just figure out the sex piece on my own, or I'll just read some tips and tricks and hope it gets better, sort of thing. What was your big impetus to dive in and to commit to doing this work and really up-leveling your pleasure?
Well, sometimes when I would listen to your podcast, you would be very frank and you would say stuff about, it's total bullshit, blaming other people, own your shit. Sorry for my language, but I'm like, you know what? Tilly's totally right. Like, I have so much stuff that I need to work through. That's my issue. And, in our relationship, my husband and I, we had our little struggles, but I do seriously think that a huge thing is that I own that now, that I can't blame him for stuff that is my past and my history and my insecurities.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's something that I'm a huge advocate for and teach a lot about, especially when people are like, oh, I want to do to couples coaching or whatever. It's like, okay, let's work with the one-on-one stuff first and then help you heal and integrate all of your own pleasure blocks. And then we'll move on to the relationship, right? So can you tell me a little bit about what you discovered? Because a lot of this stuff is unconscious. Like, what did you discover about what were your particular blocks to being able to orgasm and with your husband? And what was in the way, in your own words?
So I think one of the huge things that I learned is that even though I wasn't aware of the trauma, because I was gang raped in my early 20s in Munich, Germany, and I was date rape drugged. So I wasn't aware that it was going on. And I'm like, well, I woke up and I knew what happened and I walked away and obviously was quite devastated, but I'm like, I was drugged. So it's not like the whole entire experience I felt. And one of the things that you taught me was that your tissues absorb it, like it just becomes part of your vagina. And, and then, so you don't even know that you have damage from trauma, like until you've healed it. And then you're like, oh, I did crap.
Right. Yeah. And one thing many people have heard me say on here is like, we all have access to so much pleasure and our multi-orgasmic essence, which I believe that we're all born here with, and we just get conditioned out of being able to experience that sort of pleasure in our life. So other than, the trauma, like what else did you really discover and learn about yourself that really kept you from being able to have the sort of sex life and the intimate connection that you wanted with your husband? Because I know y'all had also taken a bit of a sabbatical, yeah?
Yeah. So we took a little break and we both learned a ton while we were apart. And, I'm not even sure that I can focus in on exactly how to answer that question. But my biggest problem was just feeling unworthiness, that I just wasn't good enough, that there was something about me that was broken or damaged. And in doing this course, like, I learned so many things about my own issues, about setting boundaries, not being a people pleaser. I learned that there's different types of orgasms, like valley orgasm versus peak orgasms. I didn't even know such thing like valley orgasm. I didn't know what that was. I, also learned about the different blueprints and archetypes. And this was one of my huge wins, was that I realized that out of the 5 different types that I am asexual and that I love sex. But the biggest thing I need to do is learn how to slow down and enjoy every little tiny moment instead of rushing to the goal of orgasm, which I guess is a huge deal for a lot of women. It's just goal orientated. I might have gotten off topic. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, no, you totally did. So some of the blocks that I'm hearing were that you didn't really understand your own wiring and what really turned you on. And you also had some traumas from the past that were starting to come to the surface. And yeah, like, tell me about some of the big results, I guess, that you started to experience once you started to unearth these things. I like to say that when you enter into sexuality work, it is like stepping into a storm, right? And I have the perfect last name to be what is that, allegory, maybe? I don't know literary terms, people. This is not my strong suit. But yeah, it's like just like stepping into a storm, because it's like all of these things under the surface that were unconscious begin to become conscious, and then you have to deal with them. But then you deal with them, and then it's like, oh, but there's my pleasure, and there's the amazing orgasms I always wanted to have. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was blown away how this valley orgasm happens and how it really just comes out of the blue. And just that there's so much about it that's moving energy, and learning all about like breathing techniques, and also just desensitizing areas of the yoni to make it more sensitive so that you can actually feel more. So I guess the other thing is the meditation part, where in order to really drop in and not be in your head, which I do, you really have to meditate. You have to go in there really deep and stay there. And, that's hard, and if I can get this across to anybody, this is not something that happens in a couple of weeks. Like this course is beautiful because it's over a couple of months. Like, you have to work at it. It's not just going to happen. It's like you're retraining your nervous system. So, it's been a journey, and it's been absolutely amazing. And I still have lots of work to do, but it's really coming along.
Yes, it is. Oh my goodness. Okay. Well, can you tell us about your main goal and how you achieved that? Like, specifically, what were some of the practices or the big aha moments that you had on the journey to achieving the goal that you had come here for?
Well, my goal was to have an orgasm during sex with my husband, and I have achieved that goal. And a lot of it is because he is extremely, extremely, extremely dedicated and devoted to me being happy and content and feeling safe, secure, loved, cherished. And so you really need to feel that safe spot, that love, the belonging. And you need to take the time, like, you need to be dedicated. And we're lucky because our kids are older, and I can only imagine how hard it would be to put this amount of effort in when your kids are young, because they're constantly interrupting you, and you really have to have a quiet space and give it the time and slow everything down. And, and I think the other thing is just being able to say what I want and what I need. we, in our younger years, we had tons of fun sex, and it was like a lot of quickies and stuff. And now I'm like, no, like I want it to be at least a half hour experience. I want the candles lit. I want, music on and, the lava lamps on and, I just want the whole experience. And I'm just so incredibly grateful that I'm in a relationship where we can do this together because we're both dedicated to it.
Yeah, I know. And your commitment to doing this and learning how to orgasm with your husband was so strong and so beautiful to watch. And I remember at some point in the program that we shifted the goal from it being to have that orgasmic experience to actually the goal is to let go of the goal.
Yes. I had to say that so many times. I'm like, okay, no orgasm tonight. Like I would say it out loud. This is not about orgasming.
Right. Yeah. So can you tell me how you dealt with that? Because there are, I think the sexual blueprint women. So I have talked about the erotic wiring. This is from the work of Jaya. Okay, erotic blueprints, and we discuss and go over some of this in the program. But how the sexuals kind of, especially if you're a woman and you're a sexual blueprint, we kind of get we're not the typical woman, right? Because sexual blueprinted women are very straightforward about their sexuality. They're very much, I want this to be an orgasmic experience. And it's very much goal oriented. And they like to know that they're going to get it, right? They don't need the buildup or the anticipation, but the penetration actually is really important to them, a lot of them. And they're very much what most people would consider like the male in a relationship. And sometimes sexual women aren't really understood in that blueprint. So how did you go from being like a kind of like a goal-oriented sexual, like I want the experience to be this, to look that way, to have this outcome, to being able to drop that goal so that you could learn to orgasm in a different way?
So I think it's still a work in progress. I have to admit, I have to catch myself to not slip back to that. But a huge part of it was learning the archetypes, because one of the things, and one of the other women in the program talked about how, oh my gosh, she's got kinky and she's submissive. And I'm like, I picture women that orgasm like on top and in control and, woohoo, like, and I'm just like, you know what, that is not me. I'm like, I want to be just taken over by a man, like I just want, I want to be on the bottom. I don't want to be on the top. I just, yeah, like without going into too many details, that's, yeah. And so that's just finding out more about who I am and what I like. So again, I'm not sure I answered the question, but
I guess I'm looking to hear you describe maybe the struggle that it was to learn to drop the goal from being very goal oriented to how do I stop being so goal oriented? Because this is where so many women stop dead in their tracks and don't do this, because like, oh, my body can't do that. I can't slow down enough, or I don't have the time to do that. Right. There's a lot of excuses about why we can't slow down or why we can't take the time to teach our bodies to learn to orgasm in a different way, to have different types of orgasms, to unearth what else might be available as an access point to pleasure. Does that make sense?
Yes. And again, like I said, I still struggle a bit with that goal thing, because it was a goal of mine for so long, but just the whole experience of more of a tantric sex, evening where you're just enjoying each other, you're worshiping each other's body and, loving that human being inside and out. It's just so much more than the goal. It's just so enjoyable, and going slow is just like, that's probably the biggest key, and being relaxed as well. So when you have young kids, it's very hard to be relaxed, but you have to be relaxed. You have to take the time. You have to slow everything down and just enjoy the moment, which brings me to the fact that, I did say about meditation being important, being able to drop in, but also it's all about the mindfulness and, what's around you, what senses, what are you thinking, what are you feeling, like what's in the now in a mindful way, as opposed to jumping ahead or thinking behind. Like, it's like, what's going on right now? What am I feeling right now? So you had so many good exercises that talked about the five senses and getting in tune to that. And I think that really, really helps slow everything down.
Mm. Yeah. So slowing down is definitely one of those things to help you to learn to orgasm in a new way, like you said. But also, you were really committed to like the 50-50 rule that I presented several times, right? Do you want to tell us about that?
So I guess I had a bit of vibrator addiction in the beginning. I didn't know how to orgasm without a vibrator. And so this has taken a really long time to change your body on how to respond. But eventually, like you said 50-50. So then I finally got to the point where I was only doing it 50% of the time, and 50% of the time when I was self-pleasuring, I would use, not use the vibrator. And so that was something that I had never, ever achieved before. And so then I was like, wow. And then I stopped using it even more, so that I could really drop into, all the senses and everything, instead of the vibrator with the really high frequency that, is easy to get a clitoral peak orgasm, but it's not the same as the valley orgasm. And again, like, that's all stuff I learned. I had no clue about any of that.
Great. Most people don't, and they have no idea what's available to their bodies. So you've had a valley orgasmic experience. What other types of orgasmic experiences do you feel that you have had since learning how to slow down, drop the goal, and open up to what else might be available?
Well, I still think I'm a work in progress. So I can't say that I've really had a lot, but at least 100% more than I was having 6 months ago. So, so that's a hard one to answer, because I think I've already sort of explained the ones that I've had, and it's not an every time thing. But when it's not an every time, you have to let that go, and you just have to realize how enjoyable the whole experience is, even if there's no orgasm at the end.
Right. Yeah. So tell me about that. Like, what is the level of satisfaction? Because I think that's one thing that women often say about, having to use a vibrator or having to do it themselves, even with their fingers, that if they can't orgasm with a partner, they feel that there's not this sense of satisfaction or connection that they really crave. And they feel like, well, maybe something's messed up with my body if it can't do this thing, but I really want to experience this with a partner, but I can't, I don't know how, right? Yeah. Like, what is your sense of satisfaction? How is it different than before?
Well, if this is all there was, I would be completely 100% satisfied. I know that there are women that have probably peak orgasms during sex, and maybe I need to do more self-stimulation during sex, or maybe we need to introduce a vibrator for that. I don't know. But I'm just slowing everything down and enjoying what there is right now.
Cool. Yeah. So that sense of slowing down and connecting more with your partner, it's almost like it's come full circle, because at the very end of the program, I was like, you had asked me, maybe I could use the vibrator again. I was like, yeah, do it. You already learned how to have an orgasm without it. So you achieved what you came here for. You can start to reintroduce that back into your practice. But now it's from an empowered place, right? It's from tell me about that.
Well, it was a dependency before, and now it's a choice that I get to choose whether, I want to do it that way or not. And so right now I'm just really enjoying the way it is. So I've gone by the stag shop a couple times, thought about going in and getting one, and I'm like, no, not yet. I'm just enjoying the way it is, because I've never felt more connected to my husband in my life. And so it's just an incredible journey.
Beautiful. Yay. It's incredible to watch that journey unfold too. Okay. So, well, I know you said, I feel like I'm still a work in progress. I think that's everyone that starts on this journey. And I always say this program is the perfect start to this journey. because it's not the end. Like, there is so much more to learn. And it's a practice too. Like the whole jade egg practice is a practice. And the more that you practice it, the more that you become sensitized and your energy body starts to awaken and start to open. And the different orgasmic experiences start happening, right? But it does take time. And I think it's kind of like teaching an old dog new tricks. The older you are, the more time you might need to shift that sort of thing around. So
that is a really, really good point, because the longer you've been doing something one way, it's going to take twice as long to make it go another way. It's just the way your nervous system works. It's changing behaviors takes time.
Yeah. Okay. Well, even with the change that you've experienced so far, what do you feel is possible for you now?
I feel like you brought up one thing in one of our calls about Maslow's hierarchy, the pyramid thing, and it talks about self-actualization. And what that basically means is achieving my full potential. And achieving my full potential means, realizing if I'm jealous or envious of other women, that it's just a gateway into what more I can do for myself. So that is really, really huge. And it's just really, really fed me to go, there's more. I can do more. I can learn more. I can be more. I can offer more. And so it's just really empowering. Just to know that you're just going to keep on this journey and keep learning. And yeah.
Nice. Awesome. Self-actualization is on the horizon. Beautiful. All right, well, what was your favorite part of the program?
My favorite part, probably the group calls, just because hearing the other women open up and their stories and their challenges, it makes you feel not alone. You're not the only one out there, and very, very supportive. And I really liked the spiritual part of the program, like really diving into divine feminine affirmations every morning and having a ritual. I really, really enjoyed that part. I think one of the favorite parts was preparing for this call, because I actually had to sit down and review everything. And I'm like, yeah, what did I learn? What are the highlights? And that was really, really good to sum it up and review it.
Yeah, I've heard that from several people who've done this interview with me before. Like, actually, I should probably just make all of y'all do it, whether or not you do the interview with me or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know in my own experience, sometimes we lack reflection of how far we've come. And it's so funny you bring that up, because last night I just had a breakdown moment and I'm like, I'm a failure. I'm not doing anything right. And I just told my boyfriend, I was like, could you just remind me of all the things I've actually accomplished this year? And he starts telling me and naming me all the things. And I'm like, okay, right. Okay. I'm being ridiculous, right? Because it's so easy to forget the accomplishments and some of the big wins, because we don't tend to focus on those things very much. So I love that was one of your favorite parts, was just taking the time to reflect on all that you have accomplished and how far you've come,
Yeah, it's really good. You should make us all do that.
I'll have to add that in somehow. Cool.
Okay.
Well, who should join this program in your opinion?
Definitely any women that have had any sexual trauma, or life trauma, anybody that thinks that there is more, that they're just, not sure that their full potential, because this definitely causes you to branch out and reach out and just learn more. If you think that everybody else is to blame for where you're at in your life, I think this would be an amazing program, because it just, instead of feeling sorry for yourself that, this happened to me or that happened to me, you just take charge and you change it. So anybody that just wants to be in a better place.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well, any last words of wisdom or anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up?
Well, I just want to say thank you, because it's been a ton of fun. And you've been awesome to talk to. And I just have felt super comfortable. And so thank you.
Oh, thank you, Barb. All right, my loves, the next round of Sensually Embodied Woman starts the week of October 4th. So if you would like to join us, this is your last chance and opportunity. Just head to www.tillystorm.com, and you can go to work with me and then head to the Essentially Embodied Woman program page, and you can fill out the questionnaire, and that will lead you to book a call if you qualify for the program, and you can speak with someone to see if this is a good fit for you. So hopefully we have a beautiful group coming soon. I know we've already got a couple women joining us, but we'd love to have a few more. So yeah, go ahead, head there and get started, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for joining, and we'll talk next week. Bye.